Eli's new favorite team, lifelong Auburn fan since 2023. Number 8 Auburn at Mississippi State, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time tip-off. This one on SEC Network on Saturday. Haslametrics makes this spread Auburn -6 on the road, over under around 143. Eli, in your rankings, still a tad higher on Auburn than the AP poll. Number 6 versus number 8, Mississippi State unranked in this one. We just saw Auburn fight like hell against their rival on the road at Alabama, come up short on Wednesday night. You kind of previewed on last week's episode that we might be getting into a little bit of a lull for Auburn in their schedule. One loss down. Are they on upset alert again on Saturday?
Mississippi State, I don't know if they could take advantage of Auburn the way Alabama did on Wednesday night, but I'll get to the matchups in a second. And you brought up Auburn losing at Alabama, overcoming that 15-point halftime deficit or double-digit halftime deficit, which was impressive. I thought they were just kind of lay flat in the second half, and maybe we would continue to see the issues that we saw in the first half, which was poor shot selection, but they kept going to Janai Broome, or at least got him the ball more so in transition than they did in the first half, which was an adjustment and something that you don't necessarily expect to see with a team that is facing a difficult matchup, a team that wants to push you offensively and make Auburn run up and down the floor, which isn't what Auburn necessarily wants to do, at least defensively. They want to keep you more so in the half court. So I was impressed with the Tigers' second half comeback, still without a quad one win, which is definitely glaring. And I previewed this on thelines.com with my Auburn-Alabama preview going back to before the game, obviously. And the 3-point defensive aggression I thought was inevitable. And Alabama took advantage like hell in the first half, kind of came back down to earth in the second half. But my biggest question with this Auburn team, whether it's in the short term against Mississippi State or long term for our futures, got 80-1 back in November, now in the 15-20-1 range, is who's creating offensively within the Tigers' backcourt. Aiden Holloway kind of seems like a ghost down the stretch. 5-star freshman, yes, but we've yet to see him be able to create in isolation situations. They got Denver Jones from FIU, really good 3-point shooter, one of the better and more underrated on-ball and off-ball defensive players in college basketball, but can't really create, and was on the bench for the final 6 to 7 minutes of that game against Alabama. Now, I will say, one of the best, if not the best second unit in college basketball, believe it or not, the second most efficient lineup in the country is Auburn's second unit. And they rank top 10, I think, in bench minutes, and of course, top 10 in adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. And that plays to the kind of depth they have with the athleticism they have, not only in their starting lineup, but off the bench. And then when I go into the matchups within this game, Mississippi State has lost 4 of their last 6, so a bit of a bounce back spot for the Bulldogs if you believe they can get right at home. Maybe due for a little bit of positive regression from 3, 32.2% in SEC play in terms of their perimeter efficiency, but I broke this down in my preview, SEC preview, like I mentioned over at thelines.com. SEC teams don't necessarily shoot well from 3 since the 3-point line was kind of stretched back, dating back to before the 2019-2020 season. So is this really a bounce back spot for the Bulldogs from deep? We'll see against an Auburn team that may be a little bit more due for 3-point or negative variance in terms of their 3-point efficiency defensively. The key, though, at both ends of the floor, it's going to come down to Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell against Tolu Smith and vice versa. Does the Mississippi State big have the advantage, or does Broome and Cardwell off the bench to an extent offensively, more so defensively against Tolu Smith? Are they able to get the upper hand? So I don't see a lot of mismatches for Mississippi State. That said, I make this line closer to Auburn -4.5, -5. So still kind of see this as maybe, going back to your point about what I said last week, maybe another loss here for Auburn, especially if this is another close game, which keep in mind, Auburn has only had 4 games that were up in the air in terms of a 2-possession game with 5 minutes left this season. So they haven't played a lot of close games, and shot selection and shot creation down the stretch could be an issue if that happens once again.
Yeah, by the way, that was an eye-popping stat that since the three-point line got moved back in the landscape of all the conferences, more than 20 conferences, the SEC has never been in the top 15 in three-point field goal percentage. And Auburn fits that mold again. I mean, this is potentially one of the areas where Mississippi State could have an advantage in this game. Auburn outside the top 100 in three-point field goal percentage, and Mississippi State top 10 in defending the three this season. So if that happens again in this one, then that's going to lower the ceiling for Auburn in this particular matchup. Also, Auburn in SEC play only ranks 12th in the conference in offensive rebounding percentage allowed. So potentially second chance opportunities for Mississippi State and their struggling offense in this matchup. Now, obviously Auburn is going to have a handful of advantages. That's why they are rightfully favored in this one. A lot of it comes on the defensive end. They are number 3 in effective field goal percentage D, and against the Mississippi State offense, that's only 133 in that metric. Mississippi State gives the ball away a lot. Number 251 in the country in giving the ball away. Auburn number 35 in protecting the ball offensively. And in SEC play, Auburn number 1 in the conference in takeaway percentage. So they're forcing a lot of turnovers as well. Lastly, I mean, if the other thing that kind of makes me queasy when you're talking about trying to take a dog to cover, a spread like this, if it's going to be less than 3 possessions, one team's really good at shooting free throws, the other sucks. Auburn is number 1 in the conference in free throw percentage, and Mississippi State is number 14. So when you're trying to find those extra points to cover the spread here, Eli, that always makes me a little nervous. But perhaps this is a spot where everybody at this point knows how good Auburn is. Everybody knows that they're coming off of a loss. We haven't seen it a lot in the market where a road team is getting steamed, especially in conference play. But if for whatever reason this were to go from 6 to 7, 8, 9, at that point, then I would start considering Mississippi State. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody, even though we don't have the logistics here of knowing what the spreads are with the nature of when sportsbook release odds, at thelines.com, top right-hand corner, hit the Discord button. And whenever I lock in a bet for college basketball, you will find it under the Staff Basketball Bets channel. You can also go to the Rolls server and opt in for push notifications to your Discord app to make sure you know immediately whenever I lock in a bet for college basketball. Thankfully, still with a winning record this season after an undefeated Saturday and without a win on midweek here. So that's just the nature of college basketball. But just a final note here on this matchup, Eli, for me. Just what's your reaction to that? Because I see some advantages on both sides here. What do you value most when you're looking at this matchup in particular?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with Auburn's ability to pressure the ball and Mississippi State coughing it up. That's also how Auburn got back into the game against Alabama, forcing turnovers. Aiden Holloway isn't that kind of guard.
And by the way, got what I thought was a really rough call at the end when they coffin cornered Alabama and had him tied up with nowhere to go and got called for a reach-in foul when he was literally facing him face to face. So that was rough, but I digress.
Yeah, but did Chad Baker-Mazara deserve to get a foul call on that 3-point attempt? I'm not so sure. Then again, the referee, after he made those first 2 free throws, and just for context, Auburn was down 1 or down 3 before Baker-Mazara attempted the 3 free throws because he was fouled on a 3, made the first 2. Referee official walks away. Pretty long duration between before he gave the ball back to Baker-Mazara.
Can we check the zip code of that referee? I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was weird.
It was odd. And then he gets the ball, misses the free throw, rattles out. That's life in the SEC. I was not expecting Auburn to win that game just because I thought it was a little bit of a difficult spot. Also, to your point about these Mississippi State guards, whether it's just efficiency at the free throw line or overall offensive efficiency, can Mississippi State take advantage with switching and getting Broom on one of these guards like Alabama did. Mark Sears is a veteran point guard, 6'1", so definitely has more size than Mississippi State's most explosive guard, and he comes off the bench. The freshman Josh Hubbard is 5'11", explosive microwave scorer if you want to use a cliche, but he doesn't really have the I don't want to, maybe tenacity is a little bit of a cliche as well, but just in terms of being a veteran point guard in college basketball, I don't know if he's going to be able to take advantage against Broom. Also because he's just not as savvy is the word I was looking for. But on top of that, he doesn't have the build that Sears does, even though Sears is not a 6'2", 6'3" point guard. So I don't know if Mississippi State could take advantage of Alabama or Auburn like that. But back to your original question, Auburn's ability to generate turnovers and leak out in transition against this Mississippi State defense, which is much more efficient in the half court at that end of the floor, like Auburn is, for that matter. I think that's going to be the mismatch, unless this is a close game down the stretch, which is where we're going to see Auburn potentially struggle yet again, since they don't really have that, or they haven't really identified that go-to guard. And do they have that go-to guard down the stretch to get you a bucket? That's the other question about this team.